Meanwhile, Exeter could see a homelessness crisis like never before if planned cuts in the Devon County Council budget go ahead. That's according to charities in Exeter who are worried about plans to axe a £1.5 million homelessness prevention budget. I want you to meet Jonathan Taylor. I've had a chat with Jonathan. He's top man. He's been helped by the YMCA in Exeter, and he now works for the charity. He told me his story.
Well, I'm Jonathan Taylor. I'm 25. I live in Exeter. I first came about the YMCA when I was going through some rough patches with my living arrangements. So ended up calling the YMCA and managed to get a place straight away, and not really looked back since.
What's that like? That moment where you're like, I've got nowhere to live here. I've got nowhere to stay.
Yeah, it was. I was sober surfing for a little bit, then ended up back at my dad's for a bit, and then yeah, it was just things just weren't going the way they should be. So I needed to get some more support out of the family, if that makes sense.
So, just how difficult were things back then? Sort of the toll it must take on your mental health and your well-being in general.
I was working a full-time job, then I lost that, and then I ended up like drinking a lot. Yeah, and I just ended up going downhill a lot and falling in with the wrong crowd and getting into trouble with the law and stuff. And yeah, I was just not really. Things just weren't great at all. So I needed to sort myself out, and luckily the YMCA was there when I needed them.
Yeah, I'm pleased to hear that. Just tell me what kind of support they offered.
Well, obviously housing. They've got loads of projects going. So they've got a lighthouse cafe project where like you can be taught how to like cook, clean, all those sort of things in the kitchen, like how to talk to people, how to present yourself. And then you got stuff where you can go outdoors, like rock climbing, canoeing, kayaking, all sorts of stuff like that. So there's a lot of things in place, even football groups. There's all sorts. The list is endless, but you don't get that with any other support housing. So that's why the YMCA is so good for that.
More than 900 people say they object to cuts proposed by Devon County Council at the moment. It's got a 30 million savings target for adult services in general. What do you think when you hear things like that, having been through what you've been through?
I mean, what they're doing is, it's ridiculous. I mean, they shouldn't be doing it. Like, I know they've got they make cuts in certain places, but YMCA isn't one of them. Without the YMCA, I wouldn't be in the position I am now. And a lot of other people that I know who've been in the YMCA wouldn't be in the position they are now either. So without the YMCA and the supported housing, a lot of people wouldn't have the support and the needs they need. Do you know what I mean?
Do you ever think where you would be without that help at the time?
I mean, I wouldn't like to think about it, but yeah, I wouldn't be where I am now because I'm driving now. I'm working for the YMCA. They offered me a job 16 months ago, and I've been here as a facilities worker, working along good staff members, good people. So I mean, without them, I wouldn't be here now.
Congratulations on that, by the way. Great work.
Thank you.
Yeah, very, very impressive to come from where you come from.
YMCA, yeah. To give back to the YMCA, I think is a top job. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's nice. It's a good feeling.
How do you think the homelessness problem in Devon's looking at the moment? You're obviously on the ground floor with this. You see what happens. What do you think? What kind of state do you think we're in?
It's not great. We need more support out there. YMCA recently have built a stage 4 accommodation for 26 people to live in. If obviously you're homeless or need somewhere to stay. So places like that wouldn't be able to be built if the YMCA wasn't here. The way I see it is, yeah, it's not good, but it can get better through the support networks and through the YMCA. But if you cut the cost in, then that's not going to be an option.
So at the moment, Devon County Council have got a 1.8 million homelessness budget. Under these proposals, that would be scrapped. What would be the impact, in your view, working where you are and having been homeless, what would be the impact on Devon's homeless community if that were to happen?
Even to get people who are homeless into these sort of projects, they wouldn't be able to because there wouldn't be the funding. So, I mean, it would really affect a lot of people's lives, a lot of families. And, I mean, it's going to cause a lot of people mental health problems and even worse, do you know what I mean? So without this funding, they might not be able to get to where they need to be.
What tends to happen if there isn't the support and if people do continue to sleep rough and to abuse different substances? What tends to happen if they don't get help?
They'll get into trouble with the law. Like I guess they would end up either in jail or even worse, dead. Do you know what I mean? And that's the bottom line. Like, without their help, you're either going to end up ruining your life to the point where you either die or you end up in prison and ruin your life even more. So I mean, we really do need this support.
They will argue, of course, that they have got to make ends meet and they have got to balance their books, and they think that this should be done purely by the charity sector. What would you say to that?
I understand it's difficult, but surely there's somewhere else they can cut. Do you know what I mean? Because this is probably more important than a lot of other things, because there's been a lot of funding for this, a lot of people trying to raise awareness and trying to help this not happening. So, I mean, if that many people are trying to save this, then obviously they're doing something wrong.
And life for you now, as you mentioned, is so different, isn't it? I mean, your
Yeah.
outlook's so different. I mean, you're walking, talking proof of what the support that goes towards charities like the YMCA can do for one human's life.
Well, yeah, like, exactly. I think that's what I've tried to tell residents that live here. That I've spoken to a few of them and said, listen, I used to be a resident. I've been where you have been, and I've managed to kind of sort my life out. They're like, well, if you can do it, I can do it. So they try a little bit harder. There was one resident in particular that was going through a rough patch, and just speaking to him, just saying like what you can and can't do and stuff, and like what it's like to be here. Because obviously I've been here before. And like he started to sort his life out a bit, and he's knuckling down, paying his rent, keeping out of trouble, and that's what you need to be doing. But sometimes people just don't listen. But if you've got someone that's similar to your age and been where you've been, they're more likely to listen. And you're not going to have that if they cut all the funding and stuff. People aren't going to be aware of all that.
That was Jonathan, who was homeless but found the YMCA and has got a job now. He's driving, as you just heard there, and is really giving a little bit back. That was his story. Now, we've spoken to the council on this, Devon County Council, and the councillor, James McInnes, who's the cabinet member with responsibility for adult social care, said this. He said, no decisions have been made and won't be until we've fully analysed all of the feedback. These are challenging times, and I do not for one moment underestimate the impact of these proposals. We have a duty to deliver the best value out of every pound we spend, to make sure services are as effective as possible, and they are services people want to use. Never has that been more important than now. We fully consider all the responses we've received before reaching our decisions at our cabinet meeting in July. It's BBC Radio Devon. John Akers at breakfast. Hope you're well. It's 7:45 now.